My life has been magnificent, from a farmer's daughter to a first-rank titled lady of the Marquis household, enjoying the happiness of family life in my later years with children and grandchildren around me. But if there is a next life, I will never set foot in the Prime Minister's residence again. My life should be chosen by myself. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins, between the orderly rows of fields and cottages. Farmers could be seen bending over their work everywhere. Suddenly, a clear, pleasant voice rang out. "Brother Tienyu, my dad asked me to bring you some water. You should take a break." The young girl, dressed in simple coarse clothes that couldn't hide her delicate beauty, had the fair complexion rarely seen among country folk. Hearing the voice, some young men straightened up and looked teasingly toward a dark-skinned, powerfully built man of imposing stature. "It's Wang Tienyu. Tienyu, look. Your fiancée is bringing you water. Hurry up, don't let her get sunburned." "Ha ha ha ha, yeah, Miss Kui really knows how to take care of you. Look, he's even blushing. Ha 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 ha." Wang Tianyu's ears were slightly red, but because of his dark skin, no one could tell. His expression, however, was shy. Ignoring their teasing, Wang Tianyu walked straight up to me. He wasn't as refined and courteous as a young master from a noble family. But his actions and demeanor carried a certain rustic straightforwardness, exuding an air of masculinity. This was nothing like the husband from my previous life, the heir of a Marquis household. "Qingxi, my dear sister, I'm sorry to trouble you to make this trip. The sun is scorching right now. It would be a shame if it damaged your delicate skin. Please head back quickly. Your family's land will be fully tended to today, so it won't delay this year's planting." Wang Tianyu's voice was deep and resonant, yet he lowered it even further as if afraid of startling me. Despite his large build, the man standing beside me didn't feel imposing at all. Instead, he seemed to prioritize my comfort in every way. I smiled and said, "It's no trouble at all. I'm happy to come see you. Thanks to your constant help over these years, my father and I would have starved long ago. My 16th birthday is approaching soon, and I'm no longer a child. Could you come to my house tonight? I have something important to discuss with you. I'm not some delicate 16-year-old maiden who blushes at the mention of marriage." Wang Tianyu seemed to be startled all at once, his whole body flustered and clumsy, his large hands like palm leaf fans not knowing where to place themselves. He lowered his head and met my gaze, then immediately averted his eyes as if burned. I'm willing. I'm just afraid of wronging you." After enjoying Wang Tianyu's extremely awkward and flustered embarrassment to my satisfaction, I nodded contentedly. "Brother Tianyu, I believe in you. You won't make me live a hard life." With that, I turned and walked away. Wang Tianyu was left behind, gazing longingly at my retreating figure. I am Kui Qingxi, the child that the impoverished old scholar of Peach Blossom Village picked up, 16 years ago, on his way back from the prefectural city. Scholar Kui wanted to wash his face by the stream due to the sweltering heat, and unexpectedly found an abandoned infant by the water. The baby had been caught by the wild grass along the stream, preventing it from drowning, but the swaddling clothes were already soaked through. The infant's cries were faint. Had it been just a quarter of an hour later, the child would surely have died. Although Scholar Kui had repeatedly failed the imperial examinations, he still had a few acres of poor land to make a living, and he could earn some income by copying books and writing letters. Additionally, since his wife had been unable to bear children, he felt a surge of compassion. He brought the baby girl home and carefully nursed her. After feeding her several bowls of rice porridge, the child miraculously survived. After much thought, Scholar Kui named her Qingxi, hoping that his daughter would have a pure heart and be full of vitality. He also hoped that one day she would find clues about her biological parents. The Kui family was poor, but Scholar Kui had some insight. He recognized that the swaddling clothes his daughter was wrapped in were not something an ordinary family could afford, although he did not know the reason behind it. As parents, there is no one who does not love their child. With wealthy parents, his daughter would surely marry a desirable husband in the future. Although Peach Blossom Village was not wealthy, it was close to the capital, and indeed, that was the case. 16 years later, a luxurious carriage entered Peach Blossom Village, accompanied by several burly men armed with swords who appeared to be guards. The person inside claimed to be the head housekeeper of the Prime Minister's residence, specifically there to welcome the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter, who had been missing for 16 years, back to the capital to reunite with her father. Before the news even reached Peach Blossom Village, the county magistrate had already dispatched people to escort them along the way. It was an exceptionally grand display. At that time, I was just a 16-year-old country girl. Although I had been taught by Scholar Kui and had thoroughly studied the 4 books and 5 classics, I had little worldly experience. Frightened by this commotion, I quickly retreated into the house. I felt both joy and fear, but unfortunately, my mother had passed away years earlier from a cold, and my father, worn out from overwork, was now bedridden and often unconscious. There were no elders in the family to stand up for me. The woman dressed more lavishly than the county magistrate's wife gave the village chief and clan leader 200 taels of silver each, and the village chief stopped objecting. I realized there was no hope in relying on the village chief or the clan elders. She only said she couldn't rest easy leaving her seriously ill adoptive father behind and refused to go to the capital. Without another word, she took out another 100 taels of silver for my father's treatment, with the sole condition that I return to the capital to see my biological parents. Once Scholar Kui recovered from his illness, he would be brought to the capital to reunite with me. As a woman with no one to support me, though I may be bold and sharp-tongued, I had no other options. I knew that if I dared to refuse, they would immediately tie me up and force me into the carriage. As for reuniting with my adoptive father, I knew in my heart it was impossible. I tried to negotiate, raising the treatment money to 300 taels before they finally relented. With tears in my eyes, I looked at my adoptive father, sensing my emotions. He also wept and told me to go live a good life, saying that he had been a burden to me. The carriage only stayed in Peach Blossom Village for 1 hour before setting off again. I didn't even have time to say goodbye to Wang Tianyu. The next time we met, I was the wife of a marquis, and he was a 7th-rank captain guarding the capital. No one knew about the connection between us. The people in the Prime Minister's residence were not as welcoming as I had imagined. They already had a beloved daughter, Shi Qingqing, although they all knew that Shi Qingqing was an imposter. The child of the wet nurse at the time, no one blamed Shi Qingqing. Instead, to keep her happy, a steady stream of fine items flowed into her courtyard. A single one of these items was worth 5 years' worth of expenses for everyone in Peach Blossom Village. The fake was even more dazzling than the real one. Shi Qingqing didn't pay me any mind at first, because outwardly I was the second young lady who was sick and recuperating at the estate, and internally I was about to be married off. So naturally I posed no threat to her position, until she saw my face, which bore a 60% resemblance to the Prime Minister's wife. Just that 60% was already enough to make me several times more beautiful than her. I don't know what tricks she used, but even a month later, when I was married off to the Prime Minister's residence, no one from there came to see me. I was confined to a small courtyard, with no one to turn to for help, unfamiliar with the place and the people. I had no way to send messages, only a strict matron was there to teach me the rules. After the marriage, I finally learned that I had been brought back only to take Shi Qingqing's place in the wedding. Shi Qingqing and Xie Jing, the heir of the Ningyang Marquis, had been betrothed since childhood. Xie Jing was the young gentleman most desired by noble ladies in the capital. However, while on an official trip outside the capital, he was attacked by bandits who broke his leg and scarred his face. The noble ladies of the capital pitied him but also kept their distance. Shi Qingqing refused to marry such a man and went on a hunger strike for 2 days until the Prime Minister relented. They originally planned to marry off someone from a collateral branch of the family, but the Ningyang Marquis sent betrothal gifts, specifically requesting the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter as the bride, marry as soon as possible to bring good fortune to the heir. The Prime Minister was overwhelmed with troubles when he suddenly received news about the true and false daughters, as well as my whereabouts. He then sent someone to capture me and bring me into the mansion, all to fulfill the Prime Minister's affection for his daughter. After becoming the wife of the Marquis's heir, life did not get any easier. Due to the Prime Minister's deception, the esteemed wife of the heir turned out to be someone like me, a commoner. The lady of Ningyang Marquisate resented this deeply and often made me follow strict rules. The son of the Marquis of Ningyang was utterly disheartened and devoid of any fighting spirit. After our marriage, he never consummated our relationship and treated me coldly. I simply couldn't bear it any longer. I had also heard that Dr. Pan was a highly skilled physician, rumored to be able to revive the dead. However, he was known for his eccentric temperament and rarely willing to treat patients. Using the excuse of seeking medical treatment, I ventured out and managed to gather a rare ice mountain snow lotus for Dr. Pan, thus securing an opportunity for Xie Jing to receive treatment. It also allowed me a few days of respite and relaxation for myself. Passing through Qingju, I saved a man. His clothes were soaked in blood and his face was filthy. I bandaged his wounds and left right after. I didn't have time to leave any keepsake. Only telling him I was the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's mansion. I truly loathed the identity of prince consort and thus chose not to mention it. After Xie Jing recovered from his injuries, the madam of Ningyang Marquis Mansion became gentler towards me. She no longer made me follow strict rules or scolded me as often. Xie Jing and I consummated our marriage, but I knew he still kept Shi Qingqing's portrait hidden in his study. The more unattainable something is, the more restless one becomes. No one expected that after the third prince returned to the capital, he would recognize Shi Qingqing as his life-saving benefactor and be willing to marry her. Shi Qingqing and the people from the Prime Minister's residence knew very well that she had never left the city during the snowy and muddy season, so the real savior was actually me. Without hesitation, they claimed it was her. The third prince is a man of exceptional talent and noble bearing. A true scion of the imperial family. It's a pity his maternal clan lacks influence, but once Shi Qingqing becomes the third princess consort, the Prime Minister's residence will be able to forge ties with the imperial family, and the third prince will gain the support of a powerful wife's clan, making his ascension to the throne within reach. The allure of profit moves men's hearts, because of this immense wealth and honor. I met my biological parents for the first time only after I had been in the capital for 2 years, all just to silence me, to beg me to relinquish my life-saving favor to Shi Qingqing. By then, the emperor had already bestowed the marriage, awaiting only Shi Qingqing's entry into the imperial family. With the imperial decree issued, no one was permitted to disrupt it. If I were to expose this matter, I wouldn't gain any benefit. Moreover, my life and livelihood depend entirely on the whims of these people. Only by being obedient and compliant will they allow me to survive. I have no power or connections within the inner household, and I am completely unaware of any news from the outside world. I am like a fish on the chopping block, at the mercy of others. I deeply felt the world's malice toward me, but during my 2 years of service by the side of the Lady of Ningyang, I learned many skills through constant exposure and observation. After lying low for 3 years, 2 concubines who resembled Shi Qingqing in appearance gave birth to 2 sons. Unfortunately, both of them died in childbirth, and the children could only be registered under my name, to be raised by me. As the Lady of Ningyang's health gradually declined, the authority to manage the household slowly fell into my hands, with no one to rely on. I had no choice but to wipe away my tears under the support of everyone and become the de facto master of the Marquis household. The struggle for the throne had reached its most intense phase. Xie Jing died at the hands of an assassin while trying to save Shi Qingqing, succumbing to his severe injuries. No one knew that I had added blood-activating and stasis-removing medicine to his prescription, causing his bleeding to never stop. Others would only praise the Ningyang the Marquis's heir for his loyalty and the Ningyang the Marquis's mansion for their unwavering devotion. My 2 children and I benefited greatly, all thanks to Xie Jing's timely and convenient death. The Ningyuan Marquis lost his wife and son, and his health deteriorated. The Marquis's mansion now recognized only me as their master. The third prince ascended the throne as emperor, full of ambition and ready to achieve great things. Yet he found himself constrained by the powerful noble families. The previous emperor had governed incompetently, leaving the people displaced and struggling to survive. With multiple rebel forces already emerging across various provinces, he inherited a mess. To restore peace and prosperity, ensuring the people could live and work in contentment, he had no choice but to proceed gradually and cautiously. Initially, the noble families had supported his rise to power, making them his benefactors. To silence public criticism and avoid appearing ungrateful, he had to tread carefully, hesitating at every turn. Much of his energy was spent maneuvering and negotiating with these influential families, and the most prominent noble family is the Shi family, from which his empress hails, the daughter of Chancellor Shi. He had long known that the one who saved his life back then was not Shi Qingqing. Over the years, he has taken great care of me, never forgetting to bestow favors upon the Ningyang Marquisate when rewarding his ministers, ensuring the dignity of me and my child. Though we are but a widow and an orphan, no one dares to slight us. I know His Majesty is about to take action against the noble families. I traveled a long distance to Qingju, exhausting all my efforts to invite the great scholar Song to become my son's tutor, but in reality, I was securing the support of the common scholars for His Majesty. Thanks to this, the Prime Minister Shi's residence fell from power, and Shi Qingqing was confined to the cold palace. The rebel armies across the regions were pacified, and General Li was honored as the divine and valiant general for his achievements in suppressing the rebels. Li Tianyu was only a 6th-rank captain, serving as a minor commander in the capital's garrison. I was raising 2 children and supporting the entire Ningyang Marquis household. The emperor even bestowed a chastity arch in my honor. No matter how I felt, I couldn't rekindle our past relationship with him, yet whenever I go out, I often feel a gaze following me from the shadows 8 out of 10 times. It happens, in her later years, she was surrounded by children and grandchildren, respected by all. From a peasant girl to the wife of a marquis, she became a legendary figure in the capital. When I was weak, everyone bullied and humiliated me, treating me like a plaything, a puppet. Later, when I possessed wealth and high status, no one loved or cherished me, nor treated me like a precious jewel. Fortunately, heaven took pity on me, granting me a second chance. I gathered all the gold and silver in the house, totaling about 5 taels. In 3 days, the Prime Minister's men will come to arrest me for a forced marriage, so I must leave early. The family savings seemed quite meager to me. It had been a long time since I had been in such a dire financial situation with almost no money. I had a knack for business and had multiplied my dowry several times over in just a few years. Never again facing such a shortage of funds. Now, holding these 5 taels, I felt an unexpected sense of security. All the events of my past life were like flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected in water. I always felt that this shouldn't have been my life. Soon the sun set in the west, and Wang Tianyu returned from farming. After dinner, he came to my home to visit my father. As soon as he entered, his eyes seemed to uncontrollably fix on me. When I turned to look, I found he had already averted his gaze. Scholar Kui and Wang Tianyu exchanged a few pleasantries. As soon as they finished speaking, I dropped a bombshell. Father, I plan to take you to Qingju. There's a renowned Dr. Pan there who is exceptionally skilled in medicine. He will surely cure you. You've been seeking treatment here for so many years without any improvement. Why not try seeing another doctor? Perhaps there will be a turning point, Scholar Kui replied. But we don't have much money left at home. That money is reserved for your dowry, and there's also the family's farmland and house. I can't bear to part with them, I said gently. Father, don't worry, I've come up with a few pastry recipes. Originally, I planned to start a small business with iron ox after we got married, but now your health is the priority. I'll go sell the recipes to a restaurant, and we should get about 100 taels for them. Tomorrow, after selling the recipes, we'll rent out the land too. Once you're better, we can come back and live here. Iron Ox and I will get married right here, so you can hold your grandchild, then you can teach the child their first lessons. How wonderful it would be if our family produced another scholar. Scholar Kui was captivated by the beautiful future I painted and, wanting to see his grandchild born, agreed. Having persuaded Scholar Kui, I turned my attention to Wang Iron Ox. He was a sturdy young man, 2 years older than me. Having lost his parents at a young age, Aunt Kui had given him a few meals, and in return, he often came over to help with odd jobs. Seeing that he was honest, hardworking, and reliable, Uncle and Aunt Kui had their own plans, not wanting to marry their daughter off to a distant place. They arranged the engagement early on, with the clan members as witnesses. I didn't want to deceive him. He occupied all the memories of my youth. Brother Tianyu, are you willing to come with me? I'll become very rich, and in the future, I'll take care of you. The weather is getting hotter and hotter, the harvest in the fields is poor, and the tax-collecting soldiers have come wave after wave. We have to leave, or we won't survive. Although Qingju is a bit colder, it's where General Li is stationed. The officials there don't dare impose such heavy taxes. You could enlist in the army, and I'll wait for you in Qingju City. When Wang Tianyu heard General Li's name mentioned, his eyes lit up, and I knew right then that the matter was settled. In his previous life, he had also served under General Li, step by step fighting his way up to become a general himself. The next day, Tianyu and I pooled our money, bought supplies and a carriage, and told everyone we met that we were heading to Fengju to seek medical treatment for my father. Fengju and Qingju were located in the north and south respectively. By the time Qingju underwent its transformation, who would still recognize me as Kui Qingxi, the journey took a full 2 months. Thanks to Wang Tianyu's presence, we avoided a lot of trouble. I dressed as a man the entire way, and whenever people asked, we said we were 2 brothers taking our father to visit relatives. Qingju was not desolate. In fact, it was even livelier than the towns near the capital. Merchants from various regions gathered here. Being far from the imperial capital, the people here did not adhere to a strict social hierarchy. Except for officials, everyone was treated equally. In daily interactions, distinctions between scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants were not emphasized. Qingju was not a major grain-producing region, and its own supply was barely enough for the city's residents. It relied heavily on grain transported from afar by traveling merchants. I found the clinic of Dr. Pan. This time, instead of desperately picking snow lotuses from the Tianshan Mountains, I revised a prescription that had long troubled Dr. Pan. As a result, I still managed to secure an opportunity for treatment. Of course, that prescription was something Dr. Pan himself would have figured out 3 years later in my previous life. I just borrowed it a little early, allowing him to resolve a long-standing concern sooner. I just don't know if anyone else will seek medical treatment for Xiejing in my absence. Lady Ningyang cried until she was nearly blind, yet she never once thought to brew medicine for her son. With Scholar Kui's illness taken care of, I used the remaining silver to purchase a shop. The shop had 2 floors and came with a small courtyard, complete with a well in the garden. The front was for receiving customers, while the back was for living. During the years when the Marquise lived in luxury, I had seen many novel and rare curiosities, most of which were ingenious inventions refined over generations by subordinates racking their brains, presented to nobles in exchange for some rewards. Whenever I came across such things, I would often learn a few in my spare time. Though not mastered, they were enough for me to make a living in Qingju. Qingju is bitterly cold, and strong liquor is most favored there. The finest strong liquor in Qingju has a golden hue but still contains slight impurities, and its flavor is intensely pungent. It just so happens that I know some improved filtration techniques and special processes that can make the wine's flavor richer, smoother, and crystal clear. Besides the tavern, I also opened a mutton soup shop, rich and flavorful, paired with specialty noodles. It has been packed with customers since it opened, with no empty seats, as the business slowly got on track. I finally had some free time to tease the young, tanned, handsome guy, holding the newly sewn knee pads and padded jacket. I walked into Wang Tianyu's room and said gently, "Brother Tianyu, Qingju is bitterly cold. I made these for you. Thank you for all your help these days. You've even lost weight from all the hard work." Wang Tianyu took the knee pads and coat, gently stroking them with affection. "Qingxi, I'm not tired. I can only help you with some physical labor. But you have to manage the accounts and oversee the people working under you. Your new clothes don't even fit properly anymore. You've lost so much weight. I have new clothes that fit well and keep me warm. You should rest more and not worry about me." As he spoke, he stood up and turned around in front of me, as if trying to make me believe his words. That's what he said, but he couldn't bear to let go of the knee pads in his hands for even a moment. It was clear that he was dressed warmly, and one could also see that he had a well-built figure, smooth muscles, broad shoulders, and a slender waist. Even in his fur coat, he didn't look bulky. I looked him over with admiration, my smile growing more genuine. "But I've already made it, Brother Iron Ox. You should try it on. Since you've come all the way to Qingju with me, I must take good care of you. Make sure you're well-fed and warmly dressed." The dark-skinned man took off his original clothes and put on the cotton-padded jacket I had given him. "It seems a bit too big, Qingxi. I didn't know what size you wear, Brother Iron Ox, so I had to rely on my intuition. I didn't expect it to still turn out ill-fitting. I didn't do a good enough job." I pretended to be upset, waiting for the fish to take the bait. Wang Tianyu quickly said, "How could that be? I know you care about me, and no matter what, I like these clothes." "Please don't be sad," I interrupted him. "How about this, Brother Tianyu? If the clothes don't fit, you might catch a cold. I still have some silk thread here. If you don't mind, I can alter them for you right now." Wang Tianyu froze for a moment, a vein bulging on his neck. His body stiffened slightly, and he didn't dare look at my fair cheeks, mumbling, "I don't mind at all. It's fine, Brother Tianyu. There are only the 2 of us here, and altering clothes won't be a problem." I interrupted him again and stepped closer. My hand brushed against his padded jacket, occasionally grazing his muscles through the inner garment. Not a caress, just fleeting touches. My hands never warm up in winter, even back in Qingju, yet his body was scorching hot. The contrast between cold and heat intrigued me, and I grew even more enthusiastic in my teasing. I looked up at him with a mischievous glint in my eyes. His dark skin flushed red, his fierce eyes grew hazy, and veins bulged from the strain of holding back. The muscles beneath my hand grew increasingly tense. Just as he finally couldn't resist reaching to stop me, I spoke softly, "Brother Iron Ox, it's all fixed now. This time it'll surely fit." "Oh my, you're sweating so much. Are you feeling unwell?" As I spoke, I took out my delicately scented handkerchief and wiped the sweat from his temples. He also caught a whiff of the fragrance, but as soon as the handkerchief reached his nose, he snatched it away angrily, saying, "Qingxi, stop teasing me. I'm going to bed now." With that, he pushed me out of the room. Seeing his flustered and annoyed expression, I left feeling quite satisfied. After that day, he started avoiding me, refusing to look at me and keeping his distance whenever he spoke. As if I were some kind of man-eating monster, I hired 2 tutors for him, one for literature and one for martial arts, to teach him reading, writing, and self-defense. Now, he no longer avoids me. Wang Tianyu crouched by my feet, his eyes red as he stared at me, tears streaming down. Seeing a tough man cry is truly a delightful and heartwarming sight. I gently patted his head and said softly, "You've accompanied me thousands of miles away from home, and I will not let you down. But I worry about you joining the army. It's better to master some skills at home so you won't be easily bullied when you go out. I've spent a lot of money on this, all the earnings from these days are here. In the future, no matter where your path leads, remember that you are my husband, and your knowledge and skills come from me. Those who betray me will not end well." Wang Tianyu was not intimidated by my hidden sharpness within softness. Instead, he drew even closer and affectionately kissed my jade-like hand, saying, "Yes, I'll listen to you in everything. I am yours, your husband." There was no trace of fear in his voice, only a tone brimming with frenzied excitement. I'm afraid even if I slapped him, he would say it was wonderful. Right now, my shop's foundation is still unstable, and you have many tasks to handle. Let's wait a little longer. When the time is right, we'll get married. All right, I'll marry into your family. From now on, you will be my wife and master. And I am willing to listen to you in all matters. A year later, Wang Tianyu had successfully completed his studies and, as he wished, enlisted under General Li's command. I still ended up saving the third prince. But this time my identity was that of the owner of Qingzhou's largest restaurant and the fiancé of Centurion Wang. Without those disgusting titles, even the harshest challenges felt more manageable. This time, I didn't choose to send him back to the capital. Instead, I used Wang Tianyu's connections to hand him over to General Li, explaining that the man was dressed in luxurious clothing with a dragon pattern on his jade pendant, and not daring to alert others, I had no choice but to let my superior decide. No one knows how many intermediaries the secret passed through before it finally reached General Li. No rumors spread through the military camp, but Wang Tianyu's treatment improved significantly. His superior officer even treated him like a brother. 6 months later, Wang Tianyu was promoted to commander of 1,000 soldiers, while his superior rose to the rank of lieutenant general. After he became the commander, we got married. He was determined to marry into my family, mainly because he was fed up with the Kui family's constant pestering. In the previous life, when the third prince returned to the capital, the Shi family guaranteed his safety, giving him the strength to contend with the other princes. But this time, he could be said to be isolated and helpless, with no one to support him. If one wishes to ascend to the imperial throne, there is only one path: to break through from the outside, quell the rebellion, and clear the court of treacherous ministers. He had no choice but to cooperate with General Li, making the northwestern garrison troops serve his purpose. Another 2 years passed, and Qingzhou remained as prosperous in commerce and trade as before. However, the amount of grain transported increased year by year, with more than half of it vanishing without a trace. Since I run a tavern that requires grain for brewing, and I often pay attention to these matters, I was able to keenly detect this. General Li also had a handsome-looking deputy by his side, whom he greatly favored and trusted, never keeping him in the dark about major military affairs. I told Wang Tianyu about this. Although he didn't know the man's identity, he understood what I meant. From then on, he trained and practiced martial arts with even greater effort, and he treated the deputy with the utmost respect, never daring to look down on him. Because the current emperor was obsessed with the pursuit of immortality and neglected state affairs, the princes below fought fiercely among themselves. With casualties on all sides, no one cared about the lives of the common people. Officials everywhere unscrupulously extorted the people's wealth to offer to their masters, hoping for future rewards for supporting the right successor. It's a pity that before the struggle for the throne had even concluded, he was killed in his sleep by starving refugees driven to desperation. No one knew exactly where the rebel army suddenly erupted, but by the time the news reached Qingzhou, the rebels had already surged into Anzhou, just 100 miles from the capital. General Li seemed to have anticipated this all along. Calmly and methodically, he assembled his forces, leaving 20,000 troops to guard the city while leading the remaining 100,000 to reinforce the capital. As for the foreign enemies, General Li and his men had already shattered their courage, making them too fearful to dare an invasion. I watched the marching army, knowing that the third prince had been preparing for this day for years. A golden carp is no ordinary pond dweller. Encountering wind and rain, it transforms into a dragon. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a legitimate return to the capital. Taking the chance to eliminate a few princes wouldn't be difficult, and the people in the capital would even feel grateful to the third prince for saving them. Wang Tianyu was already a captain, accompanying the third prince to the capital to rescue the emperor. His official rank would only rise higher. As expected, the Li family army swept through every place they went, crushing all resistance as the rebel forces surrendered one after another. They soon arrived at the capital. By then, the rebels had already broken into the capital and stormed the imperial palace. The third prince immediately took the lead, charging at the forefront to confront the enemy. Unfortunately, they were too late. The emperor was already dead, several princes had died for their country, and some ministers had also been killed. The entire royal family now had only the third prince left to inherit the throne. Deeply grieved, the third prince expressed his wish to observe a month of mourning to honor the late emperor, refusing to ascend the throne immediately. This act won him praise from the common people. 1 month later, the new emperor ascended the throne. This time, the third prince's path to the throne was entirely different. He had never married to this day and would no longer be constrained by the influential families. I hoped that this time, the common people could quickly resume their livelihoods and suffer less hardship. As a family member of a meritorious official, I went to the capital to receive rewards. I also wanted to see the fate of the Shi family and the Ningyang Marquis estate. Wang Tianyu, with his remarkable martial skills, courage, and strategic mind, was appointed as the general of the Swift Cavalry. I was granted the title of first-rank lady of the court, partly due to the life-saving favor I had rendered. I shouldn't have been granted such a high rank. The Ningyang Marquis estate remained in a state of half-dead existence. Physician Pan had not come to the capital, and Xiejing never stood up again. When the rebels entered the city, they killed the Marquis and his wife, but spared Xiejing out of pity, seeing him as a cripple. Chancellor Shi was a minister highly regarded by the late emperor, but he died even earlier than the emperor. Shi Qingqing did not marry Xiejing. She knelt and begged him not to marry her, and surprisingly, Xiejing agreed. She still married into the royal family, becoming the fourth prince's consort, and was later killed by the rebels. The Shi family, having lost their backing, gradually declined. Mrs. Shi, having lost both her husband and child on the same day, was heartbroken and died of depression. As for the biological daughter they never found in this lifetime, the Shi family didn't really care. They searched for 2 months and then gave up. But I care. Chancellor Shi and the Marquis of Ningyang and his wife died at the hands of the rebels. I had Wang Tianyu kill Shi Qingqing. I poisoned Mrs. Shi, causing her to waste away day by day, unnoticed by anyone. In this new life, it would be more interesting to have them die in different ways. The new emperor invited the great Confucian scholar Song. With the support of the humble scholars and General Li's military power, no one dared to obstruct his decrees. For a time, the government was clear and the ruler and his subjects were united in purpose. General Li returned to the northwest to continue guarding the frontier. This time, no one would dare to embezzle military supplies anymore. Wang Tianyu was in charge of the capital's defense. While I brought Scholar Kui back to Peach Blossom Village, the scenery remained unchanged, but everything else had transformed. We settled in the capital, residing in the general of Swift Cavalry's mansion. Wang Tianyu remained as clingy as ever towards me. When others offered him beautiful women, he refused, saying, "I am a live-in husband and dare not take concubines, for fear my wife will drive me out of the mansion." In the days that followed, whenever I went out to socialize, the other ladies looked at me with envy and admiration, often bringing young maidens to my residence to seek advice on the art of managing their husbands. Another 10 years passed, and I remained content and satisfied. I had a son and a daughter, while Wang Tianyu trained diligently every day. Fearing that I might disapprove of his appearance, I excelled in business and donated 10,000 taels to Qingju every few years, which often prompted General Li to write letters advising Wang Tianyu to cherish his family more and not pour all the household silver into the military, lest he end up a lonely old man despised by his children in his later years. The current Emperor Xian, with his profound imperial authority, commanded such obedience that none dared defy his decrees. However, the older he grew, the more suspicious he became. I advised Wang Tianyu to relinquish the capital's garrison troops to the emperor. Achieving a harmonious outcome between ruler and subject, the emperor was overjoyed and appointed Wang Tianyu as the Grand General, rewarding him with 10,000 taels of gold. Although it was a first-rank military position, It was merely an honorary title without any real power. Their son became an official through the imperial examinations, and their daughter married the son of General Li. Both children's futures were secure. Wang Tianyu and I had passed the age of 30. The time when one should be established. After settling all matters, we set out from the capital to travel and enjoy the scenery, recording local customs and practices in travelogues, which were quite popular among the noble women of the capital. I am very fond of this life. It is the path I chose for myself. Scholar Kui lived to the age of 67, making up for the regrets I had in family affection. Wang Tianyu was wholeheartedly devoted to me and always listened to me. Making up for the regrets I had in marital love. Fortunately, they all did very well and met my expectations. Otherwise I might have had to resort to violence again. The end.